The views, opinions, and statements expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dr. Jason Littleton or the Concierge Doc Podcast. We do not endorse or take responsibility for any statements, claims, or perspectives shared in this content. Viewers are encouraged to conduct their own research and form their own conclusions.
Access to the information and materials contained in this podcast is at your own risk. The information contained is presented for the purpose of educating the consumer on a variety of wellness and healthcare topics. Nothing contained is intended to be instructional for medical diagnosis or treatment. The information contained is compiled from a variety of sources. The information should not be considered complete and exhaustive and should not be in place of a visit or consultation with your own primary care doctor. Welcome to the Concierge Doc Podcast. I'm your host, CEO and founder of Littleton Concierge Medicine, Dr. Jason Littleton. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we have the founder and CEO of Jona, a company pioneering the use of AI and deep metagenomic sequencing to decode and shape the human gut microbiome. With over 20 years of experience in AI-driven healthcare, my guest has led innovation across startups and major medical technology firms, including Siemens, HeartFlow, Page.ai, where he oversaw the launch of FDA-approved AI tools in pathology. He has authored 2 books on artificial intelligence, published more than 100 peer-reviewed scientific papers, and holds over 300 patents in areas bridging AI, diagnostics, and healthcare. He holds a PhD in cognitive and neural systems from Boston University and is recognized as a fellow of the American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering. Driven by a personal connection to gastrointestinal health issues in his family, my guest is passionate about unlocking the microbiome's potential and to prevent and treat chronic disease. Welcome to the Concierge Doc Podcast, Leo J. Grady, PhD. Welcome to the podcast, Leo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's wonderful to have you on. Very excited about your company. And I just want to dive right into it, with some of the questions I have for you and your company. Number one, Jona is an inspiring, awesome, innovative company. What inspired you to start it, and what problems are you aiming at to solve in healthcare?
So with Jona, we're an AI company focused on analyzing the gut microbiome and determining what you can do to change it. And the reason I got interested in this in the first place is a couple of things. First of all, I did my PhD in AI 20 years ago. I've been building AI in healthcare this whole time. And I know that some problems are really very challenging, very data rich. And those are the problems where AI can really make the most difference, because every single month there are more than 2,000 studies written on the microbiome in PubMed, and no human being can keep up with all of that. But this is exactly the kind of problem where AI can be extraordinarily helpful. In addition, several members of my family have Crohn's disease, colitis, celiac. My son has undefined gut issues. And I've just seen their journey, how long it took to get a diagnosis, even when they had a diagnosis, how they were managed almost exclusively by medication, even though food, lifestyle had a huge difference for them. And so it felt that all signs pointed toward the microbiome as being not only involved in the origin of the disease, but also in how you can manage it and how you can treat it. But in order to actually bring that information to doctors, to patients, we really need to invest in a lot of technology.
No, that makes sense. For those new to it and new to just the terminology of the microbiome, what exactly is the microbiome and why is it so important to our health? I think a lot of people would love to hear that from you.
So when I'm talking about the microbiome, I'm talking about the gut microbiome specifically. There is a microbiome in your skin, in your mouth, vaginal microbiome, but specifically we're focused on the gut microbiome. And the gut microbiome is all the organisms that live in your gut. It can be bacteria, it can be fungus, it can be viruses, protists, archaea. It's the kind of things that you're targeting when you take probiotics. And what's really surprising, remarkable, is that every aspect of our health has been linked to the composition of organisms that live in our gut. Mm-hmm. So it's not just gut issues, it's obesity, it's metabolic disease, it is psoriasis, eczema, even depression, Parkinson's, and even cancer. All of it's been linked with the gut microbiome. The challenge with it is the complexity, because you and I share probably 99.9% of our genes, mm-hmm. but maybe only 10% of our microbiome. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very individualized per person.
That's a great point.
And there's a huge universe of organisms that have been found in somebody's gut. But the set of organisms that you have and that I have and somebody else may have can be very different from one person to another.
That's a very, very good point. I love what you said about the microbiome there and how only 10%, is shared amongst individuals and how individualized it is. How does Jona use AI to analyze the microbiome differently from other healthcare companies? How do you distinguish yourself?
So traditionally, the way people have looked at the gut microbiome has been through culturing specific organisms or doing a PCR test, like the kind that we were doing during COVID, where you're looking for a specific organism. You're trying to see, is there a pathogen here like E. coli or C. difficile or something like that? What all of this incredible science is showing is that it's the whole ecosystem that seems to be associated with different states of disease and different states of health. And so in order to actually understand what's going on in that ecosystem, you have to look across not just one or two pathogens, but at a set of maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 different organisms and see how that whole composition has changed and whether or not that is linked to some aspect of disease or health. Doing that jump from looking for a single organism to trying to do an analysis at an ecosystem level really goes beyond what any human is going to be able to do, looking at sets of spreadsheets of numbers of tens of thousands of potential different organisms. So that's where the AI comes in. Not only is the AI able to read all of the science, but then the AI is able to look at all of those different organisms, match the study findings and all of the science to what was actually measured in your gut microbiome, and then study by study say, this person's gut microbiome looks like they have a pattern linked to everything from fatigue and bloating and brain fog all the way to a Crohn's disease or an Alzheimer's or something more serious.
Wow, that's impressive. That's major. So, and this is kind of asking this question even a different way so that patients can understand like what kind of health insights can someone get from a Jona test and how can it actually change how they live and eat. So taking that information, how does the average patient who may not know anything about health, microbiome, Jona, how can they, take the Jona test and then translate to making modifications in terms of how they eat and live?
Well, what we're finding is that there are three groups of patients that are coming to Jona. There are people who have some sort of health issue. They're trying to find a root cause and they're trying to find a solution. So that's one group. There's a second group of athletes, biohackers, the longevity community, people who want to look better, perform better, feel better, that aren't looking to solve a problem, but looking to elevate their health in one way or another.
Yeah.
And then there's a third group of general wellness, of people who don't necessarily have a problem or not necessarily trying to change anything, but they want to do a checkup and make sure everything looks okay.
Right.
So for each of those three groups, by having the AI read all of these studies in PubMed, 220,000 studies in PubMed, and analyze the gut microbiome data in light of all those studies, we can point out both disease patterns that have been established in the literature or opportunities for improvement in terms of improving their health. And then the question is, okay, well, after we do that analysis, how do we actually, guide somebody to fix it or to enhance it. And that's where we built this AI digital twin of your gut. And for this, we had the AI go read all the interventional literature, how you can change your microbiome in predictable ways based on diet, lifestyle, supplements, even medications. And then with this digital twin that we build of the person's gut, we can actually simulate what happens if this person goes vegan. And we know based on all the literature how going vegan is going to change your gut microbiome. So we can apply those changes digitally for that person and see, is going vegan going to help them or hurt them or set them back? And then we can do that same analysis for gluten-free and for keto. And digitally, virtually, we can give them every dietary change, every lifestyle change, every supplement that's been studied, and really optimize how we can both reduce or remove some of these disease patterns, and then also how we can enhance the person's gut microbiome for health.
That's incredible. And when I heard you first discuss this, that totally bought me in. And I was like, my practice needs that. The digital twin and helping people to find out what may or may not work before it's actually tried. I mean, that sold me on the product. And good.
Well, I was going to say, it's so powerful. And I actually saw this at a previous company.
Yeah.
I was at a company called HeartFlow, where we were doing an analysis of coronary disease by calculating blood flow through the coronary arteries based on a cardiac CT scan. And one of the things that we built was a virtual stenting application.
Wow.
So if once you analyze a person's heart, maybe they have 3 blockages, 3 stenoses. Does this person need 1 stent? Do they need 3 stents? If they need 1, which lesion needs to be stented? And with this virtual stenting application, we were able to allow the doctors to try different treatment plans and recalculate blood flow based on all of what was known about that individual and fluid dynamics, and really assess which treatment plan was going to be most effective. And that was actually the first FDA-approved digital twin in medicine back in 2019.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's that's impressive. I mean, I think that's the future. Digital twins to test, therapeutics before we ever actually try them in patients. I mean, that is without a doubt the future. And using the digital twin on Jona, are we able to kind of see how a patient's current medications are affecting their gut too? I think you said that, but I just want to circle back to that.
We can. Today, we don't make that information available in the product. However, it is possible to pull that from the literature, and it is possible to leverage our technology to make exactly those assessments. And in fact, even to go further, it's been shown that somebody's pre-treatment gut microbiome is highly predictive of efficacy for a wide variety of different drugs. So for example, biologics, immuno-oncology drugs, GLP-1s, even SSRIs. It's been shown that if you look at somebody's gut microbiome before putting this patient on the drug, you have a high degree of predictive power of how well that drug is going to perform for that individual. So these are areas that we're working on for the future that we will be rolling into the product. When you're dealing with drugs, there are other considerations that you have to take into account that we're working through, but the technology and the literature absolutely supports that kind of analysis.
Mm-hmm. And I actually have a left field question about this that I was thinking about as I think about my patient population. A lot of my patients like to intermittently fast, and some people go on a very long fast. Is it possible to see how that affects the microbiome with Jona? Or, how do you account for that? If someone does a 1 or 2 day fast, for example.
I don't know if there are studies on fasts that long in the literature. However, intermittent fasting, like a 16-8 fasting structure, has been studied. So we know that if you study somebody, you take somebody's microbiome before they go on an intermittent fasting, like a 16-8, and then you have them do that intermittent fasting protocol for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. we see predictable changes in a person's gut microbiome. So because we see these predictable changes, we can say, we know where you're starting from, and if you were to adopt intermittent fasting, we can predict where you would get to based on all of these studies. With the longer fast, the 1 to 2 day fast, I don't know what the literature is. I often tell people, just because our AI has read every study doesn't mean I've read every study. But I haven't seen, at least myself, studies on fast that long.
No, that makes sense. I like that answer. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about the microbiome and gut health?
There are a lot. One that I hear a lot is that people think that probiotics are always good for you. And it's true that a lot of the organisms that are contained in probiotics can be beneficial for some people at some times. However, if you are starting already with a high level of some of those organisms, they can potentially actually have negative consequences. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. Like we've heard a lot about Akkermansia recently, and for good reason, because low levels of Akkermansia have been linked with a variety of different health problems. However, several studies have shown that high levels of Akkermansia are linked with Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. So should everybody be on an Akkermansia supplement? I think it really depends on where you're starting from and what you're trying to achieve. And so I think a misconception I hear a lot in the industry is that everybody should be on probiotics, and different probiotics. These are high quality, those are high quality, but not paying attention to the specific organisms. And we can do much, much better if we actually look at your microbiome and decide what you need and which organisms are going to deliver that. I can say on my personal standpoint, I've stopped taking probiotics, except my most recent Jona test told me that there was one specific probiotic that I could benefit from. And so I started taking that one. But before that, my gut was fine. And so I didn't want to mess with it.
So is it better for people to take the Jona test and then find out if it's appropriate for them to use a probiotic or prebiotic?
Well, whatever their microbiome is when they test is what we're going to base the recommendations on. So if somebody's been taking a probiotic for the last few months and they intend to continue taking it, then we will analyze their microbiome, in the context of them taking that probiotic. Now, the results of the Jona test may actually say you should avoid probiotics with these organisms. And if that were the case, then that person would be best off discontinuing use of those probiotics. But basically what we always say to people is, eat like you're normally eating, take the supplements you're normally taking. And if there's something that seems off or that you need to stop, we'll tell you based on looking at your microbiome.
Walk me through this. If I'm a patient and I come to my doctor and I'm like, I want the Jona test, what does that look like from the time of ordering it to the time of giving the sample and turning it in and getting the results?
So some clinicians that we work with have stock of the kits in their office. And so they'll just hand one out at the, to that patient. They would just register the barcode in their portal. And then when the patient sends the sample in, they would get the results there. Now the physician gets the results first, and they can choose to share them with the patient or not. It's really dependent on the practice. Although we find most clinicians do choose to share with the patient. The other option is that the clinician can place a drop ship order, where we ship the kit to the patient's house and they can do the collection at home. From the time that they send the sample back in, they get results in 2 to 3 weeks.
And that's good. So now, how does a patient log on to the portal and get into looking at their digital twin?
So it's up to the clinician whether they have access or not. If the clinician does choose to give them access to their digital twin, then basically the clinician would trigger an email invite to that patient, and then they could make an account with Jona and then log in and access their results.
Okay, that makes sense. No, that's great. I want my audience to hear that. I want my patients to hear that so that they know what to expect. Very excited about this product, and I really think it's going to really transform people's lives in my practice and really abroad. Really excited about this. And as I ask this next question, looking ahead, what would you say is next for Jona? And what excites you most about the future of personalized medicine? And how do you see it play out even in concierge medicine, which I do? It's a long question, but I would love to hear your answer.
Well, yeah, it's a big question. From the microbiome standpoint, the literature is continuing to grow and to accelerate. In fact, it's almost 3,000 studies per month that are being published on the microbiome today. And we're learning more and more about the mechanisms of action, levels of causality, and gaining more and more evidence for the linkage between the microbiome and a variety of different disorders, which I think is opening up new treatment pathways for things like, some of the side effects of menopause and so on with some of the more recent studies. I think zooming out in terms of personalized medicine, concierge medicine, I think, is really on the cutting edge here and really, leading the way in personalized medicine, because it's a single unification point of all of the data about a person, their lifestyle, and then leveraging technology like AI to be able to integrate all of that data and integrate the current literature and present that to the physician in a way that allows them to make the most informed decisions about their patients. I think AI is an incredible tool to be able to do that, both to keep up with the literature, to navigate this data, but then also with these digital twins to be able to provide very personalized, custom plans that are based on an individual's biology.
Yeah, I think that's major. What type of testimonies have you had using Jona for very complex cases? Now, for example, and I'm thinking outside of the GI world, because when we talk about the microbiome, it really affects every aspect of a person's health. Anything come to mind where you've heard of a complicated case and Jona it really helped dive into it and really caused a breakthrough to happen, even if it was un-GI related?
Yeah, gosh, there are a whole bunch of them. So one case that comes to mind is a young woman who had severe adult acne, like her whole life, and she was in her mid to late 20s. And when she did her Jona test and we got the results back, we found that the patterns that had been linked to acne in her gut were not present in her gut.
Wow.
But what we did find is that there were patterns of organisms in her gut that were linked to hidradenitis. And when she saw that, she went and did a number like research looking into hidradenitis. She'd never heard of it before, and found that it actually was a really strong fit for what she was experiencing, even more than acne. And when she followed the action plan based on the digital twin to reduce those patterns related to hidradenitis, she had a major improvement in what she was experiencing with her acne.
Wow, that's major. I think that's going to turn a lot of people on to Jona, because really, in what we're saying in a lot of aspects is that there are many things where the answer does lie in your gut, and that makes a huge difference where we need to, as clinicians, as doctors, we need to start bringing that into our practices. One of the ways I know I'm planning on using this in my practice is I'd like to get a baseline of people, a baseline Jona test on people, so I can use that to make therapeutic decisions going forward. I think it could be very advantageous and I can make a huge difference. One of the things that I want to ask, I ask every person on my podcast how they move, eat, drink, sleep, my meds protocol. And I want to ask you if you can give us a couple tips about how you move, eat, drink, sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the move side, I do strength training every day. I go to the gym first thing in the morning. I do usually about an hour of rotating, resistance-based exercise. For eat, I generally eat a lot of whole foods. I avoid processed foods, a lot of soluble fiber. I'm an omnivore, so I do eat meat as well as plants. And I really also try to get more fermented foods, especially after starting Jona. And then I have a supplement stack that I also have in the morning. From a drink standpoint, a lot of water, coffee, and tea. Sleep is something that I need to work on. I've been a terrible sleeper my whole life, and I'm one of those people that like does sleep procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get into bed and I just don't want to go to sleep, and then as soon as the sun's out, I'm up in the morning. So it's definitely an area of improvement for me.
Now, can Jona help you with sleep?
It can actually. There are studies that have linked the gut microbiome to insomnia. And there are clear things that you can do if you have those patterns in your gut.
I love it. I love it. I mean, this has just been incredible. I love your answers. I'm totally excited about Jona using it in my practice. I'm totally excited about sharing it with my audience, sharing it with my patients, because I really believe in this product, and that's why I had you on, because I really think the answer does lie in your gut, and it does make a difference, and people need to know what they're putting in their bodies that affect their microbiome, that can help their overall health. This is really big, and I'm targeting this because I really believe it's going to make a difference, like I said, in my patient population. And I want people to know, and I want to bring awareness how important that the gut microbiome is to your overall health. I think people disregard that sometimes, but we need to open people's eyes. We need people to see that doing a Jona test can make a difference. So I just want to thank you for coming on my podcast. Again, I have people, companies come on the podcast I really believe in, and I'm just so glad to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's incredible how the gut produces 90% of your serotonin, 50% of your dopamine, 70% of your immune cells. You're absolutely right. It's something that I think gets very underappreciated, but has a huge impact on our health.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, I want to bring awareness to Jona. I want to bring awareness to the gut microbiome. I'm so glad that we had Leo on today, and I really want you guys to take this podcast to heart. If you want to know more about Jona, you can definitely come to Littleton Concierge Medicine, because that's something that we're implementing in our practice. Leo, before we go, I want to ask you, where can people find you, and how can they know a little bit more about your background in Jona?
Well, I personally am easy to reach. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. So please feel free to reach out. I love hearing from people. And from a company standpoint, our website is www.jona.health. And you can find a lot more information about the technology and the test and how to get started as a practice there.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So until next time, I want you guys to keep moving, eating, drinking, and sleeping, the meds protocol, and make sure that you download this podcast and listen to this thoroughly. You know where to find us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and as well as YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Until next time, see you later.
Thank you.